A tense thriller about an isolated team in an isolated area being stalked by a mysterious monster. We may have seen this before. Underwater stars Kristen Stewart, TJ Miller, and Vincent Cassel as a group of deep-sea miners at the bottom of the Mariana Trench. Of course, with any movie that involves the Mariana Trench, they dig up something unknown there and shit goes to hell. And we are thrust into an alien-ish, tense, claustrophobic thriller of cat and mouse. I remember seeing the trailer for this movie late last year that just kind of came out of nowhere. And I thought, well, that could be cool. I like those isolated movies where everything takes place in a small area with a small cast and they have to figure out what to do to get out of that area usually. I like those claustrophobic kind of movies like that, so when I saw the trailer for this, I thought, well, that could be pretty cool. I want to see that when it comes out. And then it got released in January, which is never a good sign, especially for horror films. But I finally got to see Underwater, and you know, it wasn't that bad. Actually, it was pretty damn fun. Let's get it out of the way now. I know the comparison's been made, and I'm gonna make it real quick, but just to get it out of the way early, yes, this movie is reminiscent of Alien in some ways. Some have called this Alien Underwater, but you know, that's nothing new. There's lots of movies that have been reminiscent of Alien. Actually, what this reminds me more of is that slew of late 80s, early 90s underwater alien-ish movies that came out like Deep Star 6 and Leviathan. There's definitely some call-outs to the granddaddy of them all, Alien, in this movie through some sound effects near the beginning and just kind of a general tone right there in the very beginning of the movie. But overall, I feel like this movie has more in common with those other films I mentioned than anything else. I don't hold that fact against it, that it has something in common with such a great film like Alien either. There's nothing wrong with that, and this isn't the first movie to have done that. So let's just get that out there, and now we can just look at the movie as its own movie. So what is Underwater? It's an isolated creature feature in the vein of Alien. This movie was a good damn time, that's what it was. It moves at a lightning fast pace from the beginning. You don't have a lot of time to breathe in this movie, which is kind of apt given the subject matter and the setting of the film. And when I say it starts and doesn't stop, I mean it starts. Like when the movie starts, immediately it just goes. It does not give you a lot of time. Within the first 2 minutes of this movie, everything goes to shit and shit just goes. And it does not stop until literally the credits start to roll. There's very little downtime, and the movie does a really good job of keeping that tension going throughout. There's a little spot in the middle where it ever so slightly dips, but then it comes right back up and just goes until the end. They did a tremendous job of keeping that tension up and tight the whole time. The story is more or less pretty simple. Underwater station, they're drilling, they hit something, explosions happen, shit goes to hell, something gets released, and then our main characters are fighting for their lives to get to the surface. Besides one kinda thing at the end of the movie, there's not a lot of twists here. It's not a wholly original story. We've seen it before in other movies. However, it is executed extremely well, and it's a really good fucking time. I was never bored during this movie. From the beginning all the way to the end of the movie, I just had a great time with this movie. It's not a very long movie. It sits at right about 95 minutes, which is just perfect. It wasn't too long and it wasn't too short. It gave you just enough of what you wanted out of it, and then it said, okay, I'm done. The ending, like the rest of the movie, isn't wholly original. And while what happens is something that has happened in movies before, I wasn't fully expecting it to go down the way that it did. And while it was a bit different from what I was expecting, I do appreciate what they did with that ending. The performances here are all really good too. Kristen Stewart once again shows us that Twilight was not the best that she can do. She gives a really good performance here. Granted, there's not a ton of range that anybody on screen here is able to show because they're just in a constant state of fear the whole time. But she does really well with that constant state of fear. Everybody else here does a really good job too. There's no bad performances. Even TJ Miller, who sometimes runs that risk of being a bit too much, never gets too TJ Miller-ish. He does have a bit of comic relief here or there, but it's never too much. I'd say overall, the performances are all really solid. The special effects are all top-notch as well, especially all of the environmental effects. A lot of this movie takes place underwater, so you could probably guess that there's a fair amount of CGI to sell that illusion. And all of that stuff, everything they did to make you feel like they truly are underwater is very believable. It's a great use of that tool. Now, some of the more organic CGI elements aren't quite as believable. They don't look bad by any means, but when they show up, you do say to yourself, yep, that's CGI. Like I said, none of it's bad. It all looks really good, but it's also not quite as convincing as that environmental stuff. So let's talk about the monster. I'm not spoiling anything here. The trailer all but gives away the fact that there is something out there trying to get them. I'm not gonna give anything away, but I will say that yes, they do eventually find out what's coming after them. And when it does finally show this thing that is coming after them, and you get a fairly good look at it, I myself was a little underwhelmed. I mean, it's fine. It doesn't look bad or anything, but it's more of its design that I had an issue with. Like I said, it's not awful by any means, but I was wishing that it would have been just a little bit more carnal. Once I saw this creature, it kind of took a little bit of the mystique away, and it wasn't as scary anymore. So I wish the design had either been a little bit more carnal, which I find scary, or they just hadn't shown it as much. It's not that they show a ton of it, but they do show it enough to where you get a really good view of it and you see it, and that just takes away something from it. There is, however, a really cool thing they do with this creature in the end of the movie. It's probably the only real twist in the movie, and it was pretty cool, and I wasn't expecting it. That thing was actually pretty cool, and was the thing that gave me a slight Lovecraftian vibe, but that might just be me. Don't go into this expecting a Lovecraft story. It's not that at all, but there was some imagery that just gave me that vibe just a little bit there at the end. Once again, that might just be me though. Guys, what else can I say about Underwater? I had a good time with it. Now granted, I do have a disposition for these types of movies. I enjoy those isolated claustrophobic kind of movies like this. It's a fast-paced, thrilling, entertaining movie with some solid performances and effects. And while we've seen this story a lot of times before, it's the execution of Underwater that makes it totally worth a rent. If you're looking for a tense, exciting, just fun movie, then this is the one for you. Especially if, like me, you're into those movies that are really claustrophobic and isolated, like Alien. If that's your kind of movie, then I think you'll really enjoy Underwater. So there it is, guys, my review of Underwater. It's a really on-the-nose title, too, by the way. If you enjoyed and want more content like this, hit that subscribe button and help my little channel grow. If you liked what I had to say, give me a thumbs up. If not, let me know in the comments below why. And as always, stay sexy, Atlanta.
On a scale from 1 to 10, how bad's my rig?
10.
You're pulling me underwater!
If you like this movie, you should totally check out Deep Star 6 and especially Leviathan, both of which had that alien underwater vibe and involve a group of people in an isolated station fighting against some creature underwater. I mean, granted, Leviathan is probably a little bit more like The Thing underwater and less alien. And Deep Star 6 isn't as tense and more action heavy, so maybe they don't have as much in common with this movie, but I mean, they all take place underwater and there's fucking monsters, so there you go.